Thanks, Nancy. Actually, I am going to introduce my friend and colleague, Warren Cotto. And Warren will do a Q&A, and I'll have you talk about public safety. Let me first give a bio of Warren. Warren Cotto has been a deputy district attorney for over 21 years. So as I said earlier, we started together. We were baby DAs together, and it's been a great friendship. Warren is currently the assistant head deputy of the Cyber Crimes Division, where he oversees daily operations of the division. And there's Angela, his colleague, as well. Warren has successfully prosecuted a wide variety of crimes for that division. He's also prosecuted gang murders for the Hardcore Crimes Division and sex crimes as a member of the Victim Impact Program. Warren has successfully prosecuted many cases, what we call first of its kind, including one of the nation's very first synthetic identity theft cases, and that was in 2014. And more recently, he prosecuted one of the nation's first email compromise cases. Warren is the recipient of numerous awards and commendations, including the International Association of Financial Crimes Investigators. And that he received that award in 2019, 2018, and 2015. And that's also known as the United States Prosecutor of the Year. And Warren was also named California Lawyer Magazine's 2007 Criminal Law Attorney of the Year. Warren is also internationally recognized for being at the forefront of complex crimes and fraud prosecution. And he has trained over 32,000 prosecutors, law enforcement officers, and members of the public in the investigation, prosecution, and prevention of cybercrime. So Warren, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ruth. Actually, it's 3,200, but yeah, one day maybe it'll be 32,000. It's 3,200 people.
Oh.
But thank you so much. It's great to be here. I really appreciate you inviting me to speak today.
Well, thank you. Now, Warren, you've handled hundreds of cybercrime cases. Can you tell us about some of your most interesting cases?
Yeah, I just want to point out before I do that, though, that the Cybercrime Division, we prosecute a lot of different things, and some things that a lot of people don't even know about. Like, we're one of the foremost divisions known for prosecuting the distribution of child pornography, and Angela Brunson, who's here with us today, is one of the nation's leading experts in those types of prosecutions. So we're known for that. I'm gonna go more to the fraud-based types of prosecutions because Angela's area of expertise is very specialized, and I'm actually hoping that she'll be able to come here and speak to you guys specifically on those topics and how to prevent your kids from being victimized. But as far as the fraud end of things, one of the most intriguing cases for me was that synthetic identity theft case back in 2014. And this was a defendant named Dion Mims. He was a very smart guy. He was well-versed in financial operations. He was actually the manager at a Honda dealer at one point in time. So he kind of understood all of the mechanisms and how our credit system worked. And what he was able to do was create a virtual army of what we call synthetic identities. And these are they're not real people. They're just identities that banks and financial institutions believe to be real people. So what Mr. Mims was able to do was made up real person's social security numbers with these made up names and get credit for them. So he did these for hundreds of persons. And the way he did it was by using legitimate credit techniques, that are available to you and me. For instance, we can put our child on our credit card so that we can have them generate credit. And at some point, even if they don't make any charges, the credit report is generated for them. So he was able to use some types of techniques like that to generate hundreds of these fake synthetic identities. And he was able to set up businesses with them. He was able to set up fake customers with them and generate fake charges for them. And he ended up making about 1.7 million. We did find him, and we prosecuted him, and he ended up spending 13 years in state prison. I think he's either out or close to getting out at this time. A couple other interesting cases. We had what's called a SIM card swap. I hope everybody on here has two-factor authentication on all of your financial accounts. That's that bothersome thing where you're trying to log in and then it says, oh, we texted you a new password code. Please enter that password code, before logging in. One of the criminals we recently prosecuted was able to actually kind of break that code, and it was very simple the way he did it. He went ahead and imitated the victim at a cell phone store and was able to convince them to give them a new cell phone. And the cell phone people believed that it was, the victim that was going as opposed to the bad guy. So he was able to get those texts on the cell phone that he got. And finally, the thing that's happening a lot now is all kinds of email-based crimes. And I have a feeling you're going to ask me some questions about that. But if we can kind of stamp out the email-based crimes, I think we'd be stamping out almost 90% of the cyber and financial-based crimes that are happening in LA County right now.
Well, would you say that cybercrimes is a growing criminal enterprise or activity? And if it is, why is that?
But yeah, absolutely. It's growing for a number of reasons. I think the biggest reason is the payoff is so big. The losses that we're seeing as a result of cyber crimes, it's ranging. The ones that come to our office are usually over $100,000 per victim, and we're seeing a lot in that $1 to $2 million range. So the losses, the payoff for the bad guys is huge. The risk for them is relatively low because they're able to structure their organization with different levels, and the more levels you have, the harder it is to get to the top level of the bad guy. And frankly, they're able to use a lot of commonly, things that you wouldn't think would be used as methods of infiltration into the computer system. And the easiest method is targeting the human behind the keyboard. When I first started in cyber, a lot of it was more technical types of breaches into the system. But nowadays we're seeing that they're attacking the computer system by attacking the user, and tricking the user by various types of social engineering techniques. So there's a saying that the bad guys use. It's amateurs target the machines now, the professionals target the human element. And that's what we're seeing a lot of right now.
When you say, and that was my question about the targets of these crimes, and it's the humans. Are there certain groups of humans that are more vulnerable than others?
Yeah, I think it's expanding to almost everybody now, and the reason is they're actually finding a way to get into the entity that they're targeting. So when you're talking about the entities they're targeting, they're targeting businesses that can move large sums of money. So we're seeing a lot of government entities targeted. For instance, LA County, we're constantly under attack, and by various methods. But the main targets are people that either have a lot of money or the ability to move a lot of money on behalf of that company. So those are the main targets that we're seeing. And on top of that, a lot of elderly people we're seeing targeted because they have a lot of money, and they're really nice people. Unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of the victims of cybercrime are really nice people who trust the criminal, and unfortunately the criminals take advantage of that and dupe them into doing some things that they shouldn't be doing.
Well, run us through a typical crime where someone is targeted. How does the criminal get from contacting that person to getting money?
It's what they first do is they structure the organization. So different players in each part of the crime have different tasks. And a lot of times the players don't know each other, but it's very well organized. They're loose groups, but they're still very well organized in the way that they do things. I think the most important factor in the way, or the most important thing that the bad guys are doing now is they're exploiting social media to gather their intelligence. So the first thing that they do is they're gathering intelligence. They want to find out who are the good targets. So you can do a Google search and find out what types of companies you want to target, what types of companies that have a lot of vendors that they owe money to. They're moving a lot of money throughout the system. They use social media to determine who are the people that we should target within that company. Just by going on the company website, sometimes you can find organization charts. You go on the DA's website, you can see, who's in management. I'm on there, Jackie's on there, and there's a whole tree. And the bad guys go onto these org charts, and they pick the targets that they're going to target. So not only the organization, but the people that they're going to trick with the various social engineering methods. So the accounts payable person. They look into the accounts payable person's Facebook account. They'll look at their LinkedIn. They'll see what type of duties they have, what type of interest they have. And the reason they're doing that is when they ultimately launch their attack, whether it's by telephone, email, or the various other techniques they use, the more they know about the target, the more that they can tailor the social engineering to make it believable. So for instance, if I get an email from Jackie Lacey saying, hey, I need all of the social security numbers of the victims and all of the cases that you've ever prosecuted, I'm probably not going to believe that, because Jackie's not, someone that's going to do something like that. But if I get an email from Sean, who's my direct boss, saying, hey, Warren, we're doing an audit of all of the victims that have been, victimized in the cybercrime division, and we need to pass that information along to our investigators. And by the way, how was your trip in Hawaii? How are the wife and kids? And if the email that comes over is tailored where I believe it, even though it's a bad guy, I'm much more likely to fall forward and shoot a payload of those social security numbers to the bad guy, believing that's my boss, Sean. So the social engineering aspect is or the research that's done before they launch a social engineering attack is crucial. And then once the attack is launched, it's a number of different ways: over the phone, via email, sometimes even walking into a business and taking their equipment. So the vectors are huge. We do all types of training on the various types of vectors. So that's a whole day's training on its own, but that's generally how it's done.
So I think I hear you saying that the emails and the text messaging and the social engineering is a prime way to trick people to steal their to commit their cyber crimes. So what would be the top ways that cyber criminals would operate?
Is it the top ways that they operate? The top ways that they operate is probably email right now. If we can stamp out, email crime, I think we go a long way towards negating, like I said, probably 90% of what's going on out there. So
what should our audience look for when they're getting an email to not fall a victim to a cyber criminal?
The first thing is slow down. Okay, the bad guys know that it's a fast world now. We're used to clicking on things. We get an email from our boss, check out this link. Boom, we click on a link. Attached are the duties that I want you to do for the day. We click on the attachment. So the first thing is to be wary, slow down. And it's a shame because, we have to be careful now. And again, there's all kinds of different vectors that the bad guys are using. Sometimes they're walking into the office and just pulling all of the computer equipment out, and they're not necessarily going in there to sell the computer equipment. They're going in there to get the data that's on the computer equipment and monetize it. So if you've got personal health information, things like that, that's what they're looking for. So, from physical theft, again, it's very simple. Secure your stuff, lock it up, make sure you don't have things lying about, make sure that you have passwords on all of your computer equipment. If you get a phone call, again, slow down. If the person is telling you, hey, I'm from the IT department, I need to take over your computer remotely, be very wary of things like that, because first of all, an IT department's not going to do that. They know that this type of crime is going on, and they will never give you a phone call. And if you just go ahead and hang up on them, if you think, hey, it might be IT, just tell them, look, I'll go ahead and call you back on a line that I know is the correct line, and hang up, and then go onto your company directory, give your IT department a call and say, hey, did you guys really want to remotely access my computer and fix some things? And 99.9% of the time the answer is going to be no. And these types of things seem to be common sense, but it's things that you kind of take for granted. We had a case in the county where, unfortunately, one of our employees did get duped into it. She got a call, same thing. This is IT. We were having some problems. We need to remotely access your computer so that we can update some things on it. Her boss was in the cubicle next to her, and she says, hey, IT's on the phone. They want to, remotely access the computer. Is that okay? And the boss says, yeah, if it's IT, go ahead. So she went ahead and did it. And unfortunately, bad guys were able to do all kinds of things, take over the computer, enable file transfer, video, audio surveillance, things like that. But fortunately, after a few minutes, her and her supervisor talked some more, and they got wise and they shut it down. But nonetheless, that they were able to do that. So whenever you get the phone calls from, Apple saying we notice there's some problems with your iPad or your iMac, or from Microsoft saying that there's problems, or from the IRS saying that there's some issues with your taxes, or even your credit card company saying, there's a suspicious, charge on your card. Don't give information out over the phone. Go ahead and say, you know what, I'll go ahead and call you back. Go ahead on the internet and find out what the true phone number is, and then you can verify whether or not that's a legitimate issue that, that's coming in. Finally, on emails, verify before you click. Okay, before you click on anything. Most of the bad guys are doing email attacks now. They often will get into the system by more physical means and gather a lot of intelligence, but when they launch the actual cyber attack, it's going to usually be a social engineering technique. They're going to try to trick you into believing that that email is coming from somebody that you know and trust. For instance, your boss, from a vendor, with instructions on it, an escrow company saying, hey, we've changed our bank account where you want the extra escrow funds to go to. And that's something we're seeing a lot now. So if you're buying a house, be very careful. If there's any type of change, any type of email that's telling you, look, there's a bank account change, or don't wire your money to the original account, wire it to this account. Again, verify, go ahead and don't email back, because there's different ways that they can spoof it. Give a phone call to the known person, say, hey boss, did you really want me to send that money to that other account? Or, hey, Mr. Escrow guy, did you really want me to send my down payment to somewhere else than what you told me originally when we had our meeting? Just go ahead and verify, even attachments especially. Be wary of clicking on attachments. And I get attachments every day. I do the same thing, but whenever I open an attachment, I'll verify independently outside of that email with that person to make sure that that email attachment is legitimate. So it's a shame that we have to do this, but the bad guys know, we're a world that's based upon efficiency now. We're used to clicking on things without thinking about it. So just stop for a moment and then verify whatever you're doing.
What if you are a victim? What should you do?
If you're a victim financially, the first thing, for instance, if you've wired money to somebody, or you've wired money and you find out, oh, you know what, that was scammed, the first thing you need to do is get in touch with your bank and tell them, look, I'm a victim of a scam. This is what happened. And the banks kind of know what's going on. So hopefully they'll at least put a hold on it. And sometimes law enforcement can get involved and reverse the funds. So the very first thing you should do is get in touch with your bank. If you feel comfortable, get in touch with the bank where the money went to also, so they can kind of coordinate things. Number two, contact your local law enforcement agency. So wherever your business is located, contact a law enforcement agency that handles that area. If it happens while you're at home, contact a law enforcement agency in which you reside. And finally, report it on a website called ic3.gov. And that's, again, capital I, capital C, the numeral 3.gov. And that's an FBI sponsored website, and it serves right now as the premier clearinghouse for cybercrime. So you can cut and paste the email headers, and a lot of times they're able to piece things together and make sure that whatever crime you're a victim goes to the correct law enforcement agency. They're able to determine whether other law enforcement agencies are working on that same type of crime. They're able to determine whether or not it's the same group that's working on it. But most importantly, they're also able to sometimes assist in getting the money back. So whenever money's taken and you're a victim of fraud, time is of the essence. Every single minute counts. Again, contact the bank immediately so that they hopefully can put a hold on it. Contact local law enforcement so they can kind of help you with that as well as investigate the crime, and contact ic3.gov via the internet so they can also hopefully assist you in getting your money back, and also put the investigation in touch with the right organization.
Wow, that's really great. That's great information. What is the LADA's office doing about cyber crimes?
Well, we take a very proactive approach in cybercrime. Fortunately, we work with a lot of different law enforcement agencies. So in LA, it's not like you see on TV where you've got the Fed guys hating the state guys hating the local guys. We're members of a number of local task forces. So we work day to day with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, Secret Service, as well as we have our own investigative police force also at the DA's office, as well as LAPD, Sheriff's Department, all of the local law enforcement agencies, and we all work together to combat cybercrime. So by doing that, we're able to pool our resources, and we have a lot of reach. So if we've got criminals all the way in Florida, we're able to reach out and touch them and figure out who the bad guys are and actually make arrests. And sometimes we can work with the other states' authorities and making sure that bad guys located there are arrested and punished also. But another very important aspect is outreach like we're doing today. We do have members of our division that go out and do training. I used to do a lot of it, but I've kind of pulled back on that in the last few months. But if any of you have a group that you'd like us to come and talk to and give a presentation to, well, we have various lengths of presentations between, I'd say, 45 minutes and an hour and a half. And we can even go longer than that, but those are geared more towards a lot of the bigger corporations and bigger groups. But we'd be happy to come out and do education on how to avoid being victimized, and actually give you some case studies and examples. I think a lot of times when you can actually see what I'm talking about, it's a lot easier to visually, you know, when an email pops up, you'll kind of know, all right, I saw this at training, that looks really suspicious. Here are the reasons why. Let's not do what that email says. So we're very proactively involved in education and prevention, not only on the cyber side, but also on the child pornography distribution side that Angela handles a lot of. So that's what we're doing. You know, we're very proactive: investigation, prosecution, education, and prevention. So that's kind of our motto at the DA's office in the cyber division.
Warren, thank you so much. That was a lot of information. So if anyone who's listening, if you have a question, Fred, I think they can type their question and you'll get it, and then we'll come back to a Q&A at the end. So Warren, thank you so much, and please, don't go away.